The National Two Shows Conference is on the way at the Otterchong Conference Center at Lilliendale. It was at the opening of the conference where President Fanali said that his government has invested more than $50 billion in the advancement of Amerindians over the last 2 years.
Let us have an honest, well-targeted, focused discussion in advancing the welfare of youth, the leaders, and the communities that you serve. We are working under the umbrella of a singular Guyana, one Guyana. And the message is not only about us uniting, it is about empowering together, building equitable platform for development. It is forward-looking, transformative, and focused. That is what the One Guyana is about. It is not only the coming together of people. It is the coming together of ideas. It is the putting together of plans and development strategies. It is the unfolding of the transformation that we're talking about. In less than 2 years, when you take the current and capital expenditure, in less than 2 years, your government has invested more than $50 billion in Amerindian communities and Amerindian people.
Former Member of Parliament and PNCR member Marvin Williams said Indigenous leaders and people must demand their right to self-determination and must therefore protest the lack of consultations in the planning of the conference.
Despite the machinations of the PPP to exert political control over the proceedings, the APNU-AFC welcomes all Indigenous leaders. Indigenous leaders and peoples must demand their right to self-determination. They must demand that the PPP respect the right to free, prior and informed consent, as provided for in the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, UNDRIP. They must therefore protest the lack of consultations in planning this conference. They must protest the non-invitation of members of the immediate past executive of the National Two Shows Council, NTC, the non-governmental organizations, and the parliamentary opposition. They must demand to set their own agenda and to manage the sessions themselves. They must demand a discussion of the issues such as the revision of the Amerindian Act, the victimization of elected village leaders based on perceived political affiliation, the land and mining rights issues at Isinru, Chinese Landing, and the Marudi Mountains, and how Indigenous families and communities will benefit from our oil revenues. Our Indigenous leaders must defeat the goal of the PPP to dominate and dictate what is best for the Indigenous peoples. This attitude of the PPP reeks of disrespect and assumed superiority. Indigenous peoples must force the PPP to back off from trampling on their dignity and their rights. Should the PPP be allowed to prevail with its agenda of domination, control and disrespect, then Indigenous leaders, communities and peoples will never be masters of their own destiny under the PPP government.
This year's National Two Shows Conference is being held under the theme Good Governance and Fast Tracking Amerindian Development.